welcome to another episode of the Babalu Sports Show, where we talk anything to dealing with Wisconsin sports or related to Wisconsin sports. Today, uh, the reason I said it that way is today I'm not focusing strictly on just Wisconsin sports. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that is just really a huge um, crawl on my back or pain in the neck, however you want to look at it, and that is flopping in the NBA. It just drives me nuts. It's just, in my opinion, it is just a ridiculous part of the game that shouldn't even really be there. I mean, I like in the college game how they're gearing toward making calling fouls on people flopping, and I would like something similar to that to happen in the NBA. I just don't know how it would work because it's too making it a foul would be the too much um, on the ref's shoulders to decide if someone's faking, if someone's not faking. I mean, I'm a Badger fan, and I watched a few games where flops were called where I had to sit there and think, well, was it really flop or wasn't it? But I would rather that they would err on the side of calling it a flop because I just would really like to see flopping not even be a thing at all. Um, I just think, you know, they say, that you're trying to sell the foul, make sure the ref calls the foul. Well, just let the ref do his job. Play the game. As a player, it's your job to play the game. If somebody wants to complain about a foul, let that be between your coach and your and the refs. I like the element of human aspect of the game of the ref. Maybe he catches the foul, maybe he doesn't. You know, just play the game. Just beat them with your skill, not with some roundabout ticky tack way to get a foul called, or um, you know, I I like the sport itself, and the more the rules take away from the defense, and I realize that flopping on a charge is being that a charge is an offensive foul. I realize that, and you're trying to get an offensive foul called, but it's still taken away from you actually playing defense. You're so busy deciding to try and jump in front of a player than to try to block the shot or get in the passing lane or any of that kind of thing. So I just I think it hurts your team more than helps it in the long run. Really, it does. I mean, say you're flopping and you're it doesn't get called. Here you are laying on the ground, and now the other team has a 4-on-5 advantage down on the other end of the court until you finally get up and get down there. Or say you're in the perimeter and you flop and it's not called. Well, now the other team has what, 1-on-3, 2-on-3, or just a fast break dunk, and that's all because you have decided to try and sell the foul that you feel should have been a foul. I mean, maybe it wasn't even really a foul. I mean, doesn't we're trying to it's like a double standard, double talking. People, fans, coaches, players want to take the refs out of the game, and they don't want them to have an influence at the end of games or during the games. They don't want them to have an outcome. They don't want them to have an outcome on the final score or help decide the outcome, for instance. But yet, we want them to call flop. We're trying to point out a foul. Is that not ironic in a sense? I believe it is. Um, I know I'm old school. I know I've been around. I started watching basketball in the 70s. So I get the fact that some people are going to say, well, you're just old school. But I would rather see the defense played. I'm a defensive-minded person. I'd rather see the defense in all of the sports. Really, football, NFL is the same thing. I'd rather see the defense played than to see 140, 150 points scored and see flops out there, because flops is just in my mind is just a outcome of or part of the change into trying to get more scoring. Because even if it's a charge, the guy flops in as an offensive foul, that's still going to eventually turn around and lead to free throws and more scoring. And I think by trying to get into more scoring, we've just taken away from the true game, the game that I really enjoyed. It leads into a whole nother thing that I'll trail off into. This is the same reason why I don't think you can compare scoring titles from back in, say, 70s, 80s, maybe even a little bit in the 90s to scoring now, because the game is there is more scoring. So you're going to have more points. The players nowadays are going to score more points. Eventually, there's going to be all new generation people at the top of the scoring titles or scoring list, just because there's more scoring in the league nowadays, in all leagues, actually. I mean, football is geared toward more scoring. Baseball is geared toward more scoring. I believe the NHL is the only thing that stand pat on, it's hockey, so there isn't a lot of scoring anyhow, but they're the only ones that stand pat toward the true origin of the game. So to get back to the flopping, I really believe that that's selling the game short. You're playing silly game within the game of trying to cause an offensive foul, cause on offense. You run into a pick and you flop and try and get a call for illegal pick. I mean, it happens both ways, and I just think, you know, just play the game. Let your skills and your shooting and your rebounding and all that kind of stuff decide the outcome of the game, not fouls and free throws. And, I mean, if it's a legitimate foul, yes. And I, in the same aspect, I don't agree on the ref swallowing his whistle at the end of the game. I think you call the game the same way all the way through. So at the end of the game, you don't leave the all star drive to the basket and plow somebody over, um, just because he's the all star, and you don't want to be the ref that blows a whistle and changes the outcome of the game. I don't believe that either. I believe you just stay true to the game, play it the same way all the way through. You don't have all this flopping, and in my mind, flopping is cheating. I mean, I'll be straight blunt about it. It is. Um, because maybe there wasn't even a foul there, and you're selling a foul that wasn't there, and you're getting the fourth foul, or on a certain player to get him to head to the bench. In my mind, that's just saying, well, I don't think we can beat you with him out here, so we'll just tack some fouls on him that aren't really there, and you'll flop. Or we're behind, I'm going to flop so we get the ball back. It's just ridiculous. I really don't know if there's a whole lot more. Obviously, I have a strong opinion on it. I don't know if there's much more I can say about it, other than just that I don't understand the need for it, and and it does not matter what team it is. I've seen it I'm a Bucks fan. I've seen it on the Bucks team more so this year than I think I've ever seen before. But I don't even like it when it works in our advantage. I just don't. It just it's not good for the game. It just kind of takes away from the game itself for me. Anyhow, um, so what else can we talk about? The NBA finals are coming up. We got Jokic and the Nuggets in. Um, and they just look like a really strong team. And we got the Heat and Boston going to their, let's see, it'll be the fifth game now because it's 3-1 now. I think it ends tonight. I don't think the Heat lose two in a row to Boston. They're just playing way too well. And newsflash out there for all you Bucks fans: maybe the Heat were a little better team than we gave them credit for, and it wasn't such a horrible deal that we lost to them because they haven't had much troubles with anybody else, and it's been the same thing. I mean, the same type of scoring, the same type of everything that we thought was so bad that and it was bad. I mean, we all expected them to win, but I think maybe the Heat are not the pushover that we thought they should have been, and that um, while we lost, it is not quite as big a deal or quite as big of a failure, which I do not agree with that term either, but it's not as big of a surprise as we thought it was when we thought the Heat were just going to go into the Knicks and get beat afterwards. So, um, but yeah, I fully expect the Heat to make it to the finals, and I'll be rooting for the Heat just because they're from our conference. But I also think matchup wise, I think it's going to be in favor of the Heat once the Heat get there. Denver's a really, really good team, but I just think when you look at the two teams and the style they play, I think it's going to the Heat are going to have a better shot than most people are going to give them for winning the NBA title. I'm going to root for the Heat. I think they have a legitimate shot. If I had to bet one way or the other, I would go with Denver, but I'm still going to root and hope that the Heat pull it out. What else do we have in the basketball world? The Bucks obviously are down to three contenders. I've talked about them before. I'll just say I just hope it's not Nurse because that's the one guy out of all of the legitimate candidates that I was hoping wasn't even going to be a finalist. That now they say he is. I'm just hoping that he ends up in. I'm sorry, where is it that he's? I just hope he ends up in Philadelphia, and then we don't have to worry about him coming here. So when I last talked about it, and I'm looking something up real quick here. Becky Hammond was my first choice, but she's run into all kinds of different issues that are going to keep her out of the NBA for coaching at least this year. So Griffin, that's that I was talking about. I really actually I would lean toward Adrian Griffin is who I would lean toward. Kenny Atkinson, the assistant coach for the Warriors, might be a good choice too. I just like Adrian Griffin of Toronto um, is a good choice for me. It's not Nick Nurse, um, so maybe a little more of an aggressive coach, a little bit. Just off the three finalists, that's where I lean toward because that would be my choice for the next head coach. Of those three, there's several other candidates I would rather have seen, but it looks like we're down to these three, so I'm not even. Excuse me, I'm not even going to go there with those. Um, so hopefully next week, maybe we can be talking about a new coach and seeing what direction we're heading and what is going on with all our free agents like Brooke. And there's talk that Houston is very much on the trail of trying to sign Brooke. But I've also heard that Brooke and Chris both are very much leaning toward returning, which would be great news for me. I really, if I was in charge of this team, you can say maybe I'm a homer and that I'm too close to players or whatnot, but there is not much I would change in this team going forward. I know we're getting older, so I mean, maybe it's time for Marjan to play more, although he didn't really, in my view, show enough to have a big role once we got the playoffs in the when you condense the rotation. So I don't see that there was a bad. The only move that I didn't understand in this year's playoffs is the same move that a lot of people did, and that's the fact that we didn't use Crowder much. I admit Crowder didn't show a whole lot though in the regular season when he was playing, so maybe that has to do with it. Maybe the matchups just didn't seem the way they should have been. I mean, the way Bud thought they should have been in order to have him in. But just like Boston, we didn't right now. We didn't have a um, answer for Jim. We didn't have an answer for Jimmy Butler. So then there were a lot of different ways we could have. Like Giannis says, he would have liked to have had the shot. I don't know if Giannis, speed wise, Giannis said, I don't know if he could have handled him on the outside, but Butler wasn't really shooting threes, was he? So why couldn't we have kind of shifted Giannis over to him if Drew was having troubles with him? And Drew may have just been having troubles with him just because he was getting tired. So there were a lot of different things that could have happened there. But as far as the team itself, I'm kind of off off the tracks here a little bit. The team itself, there aren't a whole lot of people that I see that switch out. I just would hope that maybe we could bring most of it back, and under new coach and new system, we would we would be able to excel. I'm happy with Pat and what he did this year in his role. There were a few times when he was in the starting lineup that he didn't do much, but basically, when you're in the starting lineup, there's the three guys that are doing the scoring, and the other two are just role playing. So, I mean, maybe that's just the way it goes when you're the fourth or fifth guy in the starting lineup. Um, I thought maybe Bobby didn't get played sometimes as much as maybe he could have, but like even Bobby himself said, I play the same position as Brooke and Giannis, so I just gotta wait for my time. And yeah, when you're sitting behind those two, um, there isn't a lot of playing time for you unless they go three bigs. And there are not a lot of situations in this day and age for of the NBA where three bigs is warranted because you've got three bigs and you got most teams shooting, 20, 30, 40 threes. And it doesn't warrant having three bigs out there very often. So um, there's just not a lot of, I mean, they will tweak the bench and stuff a little bit, but I don't really, in my estimation, there isn't much I would do with it. I'd just see what the new coach can come in and, you know, what he draws up for the players we have because we have the shooters. Um, yeah, people say that it was a lot of streaky shooting, but that's just the way it is when you're relying on threes. We can look over Golden State and see the same thing. You look over at Phoenix, you see much the same thing. I mean, as much as everybody criticizes Chris Middleton, oh, we need somebody like Booker and all this. Look what happened. I mean, one game Booker scored 3 points in the fourth quarter. The next game he scored zero. So that's 3 points in two fourth quarters that the Suns lost. And they're saying he's consistent. Another person that they say is consistent is Damian Lillard. And I'm not here to bash other players or whatever, but you go back and look at his stats. He has plenty of 12, 13, 14-point games. It's just that we're fans of the Bucks and we hear what we see firsthand our players and we criticize our players without fully understanding what is happening in the other games, in my opinion. I mean, anyone that can say Damian Lillard is um, his consistency is so much better than Chris Middleton. Maybe this past year when Middleton was hurt, but if you look on the year-to-year basis, he shoots maybe a little better percentage than Middleton, but not much. And remember, he is the number one target, so he has more shots, or number one option. So he has more shots, and so his point total will be more for that reason. But that doesn't make him more consistent. It just means he gets more shots. So that's something that people tend to forget about. So that is all I have for today. Just a few things to get off my mind. And I know I started this podcast out by saying I wasn't talking Wisconsin sports, but you know what? I got through and got the flopping out of my system fast and furious at the beginning. And so then we got to talk a little bit about the Bucks. So um, otherwise, I thank you for watching the podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, like, and share buttons. And we'll see you next time. I appreciate it.